Okay. First question, what are your thoughts on the National Defense Authorization Act, and specifically the clause that says the government has the ability to detain citizens without trial or charges?
It is unconstitutional, and it violates the basic premise of civil liberties and democracy, that we are innocent until proven guilty, that we deserve due process, and that citizens should not be subjected to imprisonment or detainment, whatever you want to call it, without being charged specifically and having a trial. So it's an absolute outrage, and it's a complete betrayal of the public trust that our legislature has passed this. It should be repealed and declared unconstitutional.
Another question, what is your opinion of Homeland Security purchasing all these armored vehicles for different police forces around the country?
It's terrible. And it's frightening. Our police forces have been militarized, and we see a lot of military equipment going to them, and it creates a very dangerous force. I mean, the American military is not supposed to be active on domestic soil, and this is essentially creating a military-type force for the police. And we see this infringement, really, on our civil liberties in the real violation of our rights to protest and to free speech and freedom of the press, in this excessive actions and brutality of the police. And we see this on the level of racial justice, where we see, for example, New York's policy of stop and frisk. We see it in terms of protest. So this is part of a very dangerous trend of the violations of our civil liberties, including, First Amendment rights, and then the infringement on our rights to privacy as well. We see an infringement on the rights of the press and the use of the Espionage Act to go after press and reporting. There's just been a whole-scale violation and attack on our basic civil liberties, and it's a sign of how we've basically had a coup against our democracy, and we have a government which is really functioning quite illegitimately right now. And this is part of why we're here tonight organizing for the Green Party as a party which, fundamentally respects our civil liberties and our civil rights.
On the environmental issues, what are your thoughts on cap and trade legislation?
Market-based solutions have not been, they haven't solved the problem of the economy, and they are certainly not going to solve the problem of the climate. And market-based cap and trade type solutions have been attempted in Europe, and they have failed flagrantly. So, we need much more dramatic solutions. We need an economy which takes on the planning of an emergency transition to a green economy. And I think we also need, in addition, a carbon tax as well, and some incentives to help us get there. But fundamentally, I think we have to bring together the issues of jobs, joblessness, and low wages, a solution to our economic crisis. We have to bring that together with a solution to our climate crisis in the form of a Green New Deal, which fundamentally needs to be legislated, but in order to legislate it, we need to build a movement around it to demand that.
What is some similarities or issues you think that the Green Party and the Libertarian Party can come together on?
Many, like our civil liberties, like the taking back of our rights from corporations, like having a military which is truly a defense department rather than an offense department. I think we agree that the military needs to be massively cut back. We don't need to have 1,000 bases scattered in, practically every region around the world. This is very dangerous. It doesn't make us safer. It actually makes us less safe, because we're much more likely to become embroiled in conflicts that we can't solve, and which drain our national treasury and our precious, lives. And finally, on the issue of drug reform, the war on drugs has been a war on communities of color and low-income communities, and that needs to be brought to a halt. So I think, and the basic issue again of corporations having incredible privilege and power and the ability to essentially hijack our democracy. So I think in so many areas we're absolutely on the same page. We collaborated across the political spectrum to stop Obama's bombing campaign of Syria, which he, attempted along with Congress last September. And we collaborated and we stopped that war before it started. And we need to do that again now before we go back down the slippery slope into Iraq and potentially Syria again. So, I think on so many fronts, as we've been discussing tonight, we are just beyond the breaking point. And it really underscores why we as citizens need to, we need to take our democracy back into our own hands peacefully, and we need to stand up and mobilize like never before in our lives.
Okay, and last question. What are your thoughts on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict?
It is tragic, and it is really shameful. I think we've seen the development of an apartheid state. And, as a person of Jewish background myself, I understand the trauma coming out of the Second World War, with the Holocaust, and the notion, the hunger of the hunger that sort of underlaid this concept that, there would be a safe place. But I don't think you can have a safe place only for Jews. It has to be a safe place for everyone. And it fundamentally has to be safe because it respects everyone's human rights and civil rights. And that is, Israel is the antithesis of that right now. And it's become a place of apartheid, of routine and systematic violations of basic civil rights and human rights. And it's become a major military player who, is fighting a losing battle. At the end of the day, they've made themselves enemies all around them. So, I think we need to go back to the drawing boards and create a land which is not a safe haven for one ethnicity, or one religion. It needs to be, a place that respects the human and civil rights of everyone. And, one of the shames here is that Jews and Palestinians and Arabs, for that matter, are first cousins, genetically and culturally. This is something of a family feud, and it begs to be solved with some basic principles of humanity and respect for human rights.